And now, broadcasting from deep behind enemy lines in the occupied territory of the Socialist Republic of California, your host, former California State Assemblyman and Governor candidate, Tim Donnelly.
Here we go again. We've got Barack Hussein Obama, who is urging Joe Biden to get in the race. He won't meet with Hillary. Things get interestinger and curiouser. Donald Trump says his immigration policies would have prevented 9/11. What do you think of that? That's certainly what else would you expect from Donald Trump? He has mastered the art of the absurd. He knows how to turn virtually anything into free media for himself. But I do think that is certainly a tough statement to defend. And of course, if you've paid any attention to politics in the United States since 9/11, I know that Jeb Bush has been running around saying, well, my brother kept everyone safe. Well, he sure as hell didn't keep this country safe by tightening the immigration rules. He clamped down on American citizens with the Patriot Act. He clamped down on our freedom by allowing the creation and signing off on the creation of the TSA and other unconstitutional infringements of our civil liberties. But I guess if you're willing to give up all of those essential liberties in exchange for feeling safe, meanwhile, we've got jihadists running around killing people at their leisure, such as they did in Texas and they've done in other states, in Tennessee and at Fort Hood and many, many other places, too many to mention, because it's funny. The media doesn't talk about the Islamic jihadists killing Americans as much as they love to talk about Americans killing Americans with guns or guns killing Americans with guns. Because, of course, it isn't the evil person who has been taken over and possessed by evil who is responsible for what he or she did. It is only the gun that is to blame. But in the case of Islamic jihadists, they just ignore it as if it didn't happen. Then they start a discussion about something else completely random and unrelated in order to justify their ignoring and their supporting of a narrative that is unsupportable. But you know what Donald Trump does? Donald Trump did what Donald Trump always does. He's bringing up an important question that nobody wants to talk about, which is, how does immigration policy relate to terrorism? By having a lax, wide open border, by tolerating a political establishment, and that includes both Republicans and Democrats who are perfectly happy to pretend we have operational control of our border. Meanwhile, it's wide open. Meanwhile, the drug cartels are free to kill anyone they want anywhere on both sides of the border, and they do. And they're relentless in that. But the same drug cartels are making a fortune by not just bringing drugs and people over, but also by bringing terrorists over. They're able to charge anyone who is an Islamic jihadist that wants to come here is going to have to pay through the nose in order to break through our borders and come here illegally. And of course, Donald Trump was addressing the 9/11 hijackers who were actually legally present in the country, who overstayed visas and obtained driver's licenses and did a whole bunch of other things. It's going to be a very interesting conversation. And you know what? I hope we actually have it, because we're willing to talk about just about anything except for the really serious issues. It seems like something has happened to our culture where we're afraid to discuss and debate and openly argue about the major issues, the ones that are the giant elephant in the room that everyone likes to ignore. And the bottom line is, Donald Trump is the one who is piercing the veil and forcing the conversations to take place, for which I am personally grateful. And of course, it may not surprise you that the issue that is most heavily on my heart, that is near and dear to me because it involves freedom. It is clearly, absolutely, unequivocally the discussion of firearms, the discussion of gun control cannot be had without discussing freedom. Because firearms equal freedom. When you have the ability, which we do, when you have the right, not the privilege, but the right. A right trumps laws. A right trumps privilege. A right trumps all. It is a natural right, by the way, that descends from the Creator. And that right is to defend your life, your liberty, and your pursuit of happiness, or your property, or whatever else you want to say, from those who wish to threaten it. From those who wish to threaten your life, threaten to take away your freedom. That's usually the government. But it could be a criminal, home invasion, robbery. And of course, there's no shortage of government agencies that are more than willing to steal your property or tax it or attach taxes and fees and liens and everything else to it. And you've got the EPA who is willing to come on and control it. You've got other government agencies who have declared dominion over mud puddles and little rivulets of water and pretty much anything that they think that they can get away with, even though it's your property. They claim authority to it. They're not willing to pay the taxes, but they want to have control over your property. And the bottom line is, if we were not an armed people, if Americans were not the most armed people on the face of the earth, and you know what? We've lost a lot of our position in the world under these most recent leaders, if you could even call them that. That's I cringe and use air quotes here. However, the one place, the one category, as much as we are roundly criticized and demonized by Hillary Clinton and others, is gun ownership. We have more guns than people. And that's a good thing, because that means we will stay free much longer than anyone could ever reasonably expect us to, given what we have begun to tolerate within our culture, given what has passed for truth at our educational institutions and in our public discussion, in particular, because our culture has changed. And our culture has changed because we're no longer a culture of independent-minded people who are self-reliant, even though many of us are. And I'm gonna get into a story written it's in a European blog site after we come back from this break that will shock you, because the title of it is "America is a Bomb Waiting to Explode." But I'll tell you what, anybody who thinks that gun control, gun confiscation, whether disguised as a buyback like they did in Australia, and of course, Hillary is out there pushing this in a big way, and we're going to be discussing that as well. You got another thing coming. We ain't going to go for this, and we will be pushing back. This is going to be the beginning, I believe, of a great moment in history in this country for the education of the masses about what gun control versus freedom really is. And what are the implications? Because there is no such thing as gun control. There's only people control. And there's only government control. And government wants to control every aspect of your life. And when you finally see that, when your eyes are opened, you'll never go back to accepting that. We've got some great guests coming up here shortly. At the bottom of the hour, we're going to talk to Joe Kavanaugh, owner of, yes, sponsor of this show, Burro Canyon shooting park, talking about the implications of Measure X. Thank you, Gavin Newsom, who has pushed this ballot initiative to essentially end the Second Amendment in California. And then later on, in the 4 o'clock hour, we're going to have none other than award-winning actress Kelly Carlson, who's going to come on and share a personal story about how guns and gun ownership and the Second Amendment has turned her life around. You won't want to miss it. 323-746-TALK. We'll be right back. Whether you're an experienced shooter or just buying your first gun, Turner's Outdoorsman has everything you need, along with a knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you find that perfect gear for your next adventure. Turner's now has 18 locations across Southern California, including a Victorville location right on Bear Valley Road. Be sure to check out the new Archery Pro shops in the Victorville, Chino Hills, and Pasadena locations. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can browse and shop their selection at turners.com. Be sure to check out their weekly specials and sign up to get them delivered directly to your inbox. Turner's is where I turn for all my firearms and ammo needs. Remember to tell them Tim Donnelly sent you, and you'll get an additional discount. Hey, you are listening to the Radio Free California Network. I am Tim Donnelly, your host, former California State Assemblyman and radio governor here in California. And we're talking about the most important issues. That's all we discuss here. We're not going to get into all of the insider baseball of the Republican or Democrat Party, even though we'll give you the highlights when it arises to at least be interesting gossip. And of course, by the way, you're not going to want to miss tomorrow's show because we're going to have Ed Klein, who has written a book on the unlikability of Hillary Clinton. And he is the foremost expert on this little war between Obama and Hillary. Or you could put it another way, the Obamas and the Clintons, plural, because there is no love lost between any of them. And it's funny to read in the headlines today, President Obama will not meet with his former Secretary of State at all. He will not give her the time of day, which is highly unusual in politics, by the way. It's considered a rare form of rudeness to not meet with someone, period. Usually you schedule a meeting. If you don't want to talk to them very long, you schedule a meeting just before another meeting. You give them 10 minutes or 8 minutes or 7 minutes or something less than 20, and they get it. They understand. And then you have your receptionist walk in and say, hey, you need to be finished with this meeting because your next meeting has arrived. And that signals the end of the meeting. That's how these things are done. So it's a special sort of insult when you step out and refuse to meet with someone with whom you should meet altogether. So Obama is working hard. He's working overtime. Now, I don't know if he's going to get Joe Biden in that race. We're going to be talking tomorrow as well to Carla Marinucci, the senior political reporter at the San Francisco Chronicle, who is now also with Politico.com, and we will find out her take on Hillary and what this all means vis-a-vis Joe Biden and everything else. But I promised I just wanted to give you some highlights and read a little bit from a very interesting article. And I find it interesting because this op-ed appears in a European online publication that would surprise you. Here's the title: America is a bomb waiting to explode. United States is in decline. While not all major shocks to the system will be devastating, when the right one comes along, the outcome will be dramatic. Not all explosives are the same. We all know you have to be careful with dynamite. Best to handle it gently and not smoke while you're around it. Semtex, however, is different. You can drop it, you can throw it, you can put it in the fire. Nothing will happen. Nothing until you put the right detonator to it. To me, the United States and most of the supposedly free West increasingly looks like a truck being systematically filled with Semtex. But it's easy to counter cries of alarm with the fact the truck is stable, because it's true. You can hurl more boxes into the back of the truck without any danger, because absent the right detonator, it's more dangerous. It's no more dangerous than a truckload of mayonnaise. But when you do add the right detonator, you're just one click away from complete devastation. We can see how fragile the U.S. is now by considering just four tendencies: destruction of farms and reliable food sources. This is huge, and we've witnessed it. We've chronicled it here at the Tim Donnelly Show in terms of the San Joaquin Valley. The government-created Dust Bowl, the government literally declaring war on farmers and our food production. The average American is a long way from food when the shops are closed. The Washington Post reports the number of farms in this country, this will shock you, has fallen from some 4 million, from 6 million farms in 1935. So just after the Depression, 6 million farms, to roughly 2 million in 2012. Think about that. And according to the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, only about 2% of the U.S. population live on farms. I wonder why. Maybe it's because there's this Agenda 21, which Dick Morris laid out in a video some time ago, the purpose of which is to drive people off of rural land. And they do it a couple different ways, but it all goes back to Alinsky tactics. You seize on a crisis, and farmers are perpetually in a crisis because they're at the mercy of water and rain and all kinds of regulations on pesticides and runoff. And in California, then they've got to deal with CARB with their tractors. They've got to deal with other agencies having to deal with dust churning and every time you turn around, they're being demonized and attacked and vilified, and we're making it harder and harder for them to actually make a living. So what does that mean to the average person? Well, it means only about 4.6 million people currently have the means to feed themselves. Food supply logistics are extended, sometimes stretching thousands of miles. Meaning, if your grocery store or your local shop runs out of food, they've only got a couple days' supply laid in. What are you going to do? Good question. Weak economic system is number 2. The American economic system is little more than froth. U.S. currency came off the gold standard in 1933 and severed any link with gold in 1971. Since then, currency has been essentially linked to oil, which has been protected and held together by wars. The whole world has had enough of the U.S. and its hubris, according to this article, not the least of which are the people of the United States themselves, which the massive support for Putin's decision to deal with ISIS demonstrates. Since proactive war is what keeps the U.S. going, it loses the monopoly on that front. Its decline is inevitable. And this was the point that I thought was very compelling. Once the people wake up and smell the yuan, that's the Chinese currency, the exodus out of the dollar will be unstoppable. Because you've always had currency. The currency that's the strongest is the one that people want to measure their economies by. And certainly, two other points he makes, I'm not going to have time. Americans are increasingly on mind-altering drugs, and morals are in sharp decline. And he talks about how Americans used to live on farms and had a relative level of morality, and now you've got people who basically you cut off their food, their electricity. You're going to watch society fall apart. We will be talking to Joe Kavanaugh right after this break about Measure X. Stay tuned. Hey, if you like shooting as much as I do, you've probably been to a lot of ranges. Unless you visited Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you've never seen anything like it. On the way there, you'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon and wind your way up into the Angeles National Forest. With over 600 acres, including 19 private ranges, there's something for everyone. There's rifle and pistol ranges for beginners, right up to advanced shooters. And there's plenty of spaces to shoot sporting clays. You can make a family day of it, or you can bring a group for team building exercises. Bring a picnic lunch. On the weekends, they provide lunch. And don't worry, they always have ammo in case you forget yours or run out. One thing I can guarantee is that once you visited my friends at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you'll be hooked and you'll keep coming back. BurroCanyon.com is their website, or call them at 626-910-1344, 626-910-1344. To the Tim Donnelly Show. Thank God, because we give you the truth unvarnished. Our goal to inform, educate, and engage. And engage we will, and we will engage in the battle here, the historic battle between now and 2016 to oppose Measure X, to oppose Gavin Newsom, who is, if you think Jerry Brown was bad, wait till you get a load of Gavin Newsom. I'll just give you a little tiny taste. He wants to confiscate your magazines if they are not in compliance with California law. And if half the firearms you own haven't already been made illegal in California, you really never had much of a collection. That's all I have to say. And if you're going to run around and go hand over your legally, lawfully purchased products to a cop or sell them out of state because Gavin Newsom tells you so, then we're in a lot more trouble than I thought. But that's what he wants to do. He wants to confiscate your magazines if they are out of compliance. He wants to force you. This is backdoor gun control. He wants to force you to go through a background check just to buy ammunition. So I've invited my good friend, who is also a sponsor of the Tim Donnelly Show from the very beginning, the owner, Joe Kavanaugh, of Burro Canyon Shooting Park, which, by the way, if you're going to go shooting, why not go someplace gorgeous that has 600 acres and 19 private ranges? I mean, there's a million reasons, but not the least of which is if you do pay for a day of shooting and mention the Tim Donnelly Show, you will get either a free hat or a coffee cup or whatever they have left. Supplies are going fast, but make sure you get out there and support them. But I asked Joe to come on the show. And by the way, Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tim. It's good talking to you again.
Likewise. And in interest of full disclosure, I have to say you are sitting right now in the beautiful sunny state of Oregon, where most of Californians' guns wouldn't be considered illegal, even though it's probably a bluer state than California. But why is that? Do you think it's because it's more rural, that people will just refuse to allow their gun rights to be stripped the way they are in California?
I think so, Tim. I think the rural area, and that's where we live. We live in the red area of Oregon, which is east of the Cascades. The blue area being west of the Cascades. The gun owners out here are very, very organized and have pretty successfully held off attempts by the Oregon legislature to pass laws like California has done. I just wish that voters in California were a little bit more vigilant and stopped what's going on down there. In fact, I know for a fact that California, there are at least as many or more gun owners down there than there are here.
Oh, yeah. And look, a lot of the gun owners here, I think they fall into two categories. There's the frightened sheep kind of approach where people are like, oh, my gosh, I'm going to buy a gun, but I want to make sure I'm legal. And they freak out over it.
Right.
Then there's the people like me who just don't give a damn anymore and just say, I'm not going to allow my rights to be trampled by a legislature. And we take the risk of basically exercising our Second Amendment and not apologizing or begging permission. And a lot of people I know, they've buried all their illegal guns in the backyard. They keep the legal registered ones in their safe so that should the government ever come pounding and breaking down their door, they have something to offer them, which maybe hopefully doesn't result in tearing up all of their property. But look, the reason I invited you...
That's absolutely true.
Oh, well, it is. And look, thank God that there's enough Americans, I believe, especially here in California, that get it, that understand that without firearms, we're not free. That the Second Amendment was intentional to grant a right, not only for us to form militias, but also a right for us as individuals to keep and own and bear those arms, and for the government not to infringe it. But the government has full-time been infringing those rights and trying to ultimately get to their ultimate goal, which is gun confiscation. And
that's right. That's right.
So here's why I wanted to ask you on, Joe, because you run a business, and it's a great business in terms of having fun. I mean, you get to, go up to a gorgeous place in God's beautiful, one of the most gorgeous parts of Los Angeles County. You're up there at all the way up Azusa Canyon, and you've got this great piece of land where you've organized it and you've made it possible for people to really safely enjoy themselves and come out and spend a family day, picnic, whatever. I mean, I've never been to a more comfortable environment to shoot in, I think, anywhere in California. And that even includes my home range.
Thank you for that, Tim.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
But here's the problem. If this Measure X goes through, Gavin Newsom's scheme, then you guys sell ammunition. That's part of your revenues. It's also a convenience because, look, people, they take off, they forget, they don't buy enough ammunition, they get excited, they shoot it all up, and they want to keep shooting without leaving, right? It's not like they can drive all the way down that mountain and get to a gun store and get back up and really enjoy their day because it's a scenic drive, but it takes quite a bit of time. So you guys offer that service. But under Measure X,
that's right.
Given how and Measure X, if you're not familiar, is a ballot initiative being pushed by Gavin Newsom, who wants to be your next governor. He wants to be the gun control czar of California, and he's starting with your ammunition by forcing every single ammunition dealer to become a registered ammunition dealer. They've got to hire extra people to just maintain all the paperwork, and they want to put everyone through the paces that even bothers to drop in to buy a single brick of 22 or 45 or 38 or whatever, 9mm, whatever your pleasure is. It's basically become a federal offense to buy ammunition or a federal offense to sell ammunition if California had their way. Absolutely.
It's this is, I think, a trial balloon that's being set up by Gavin Newsom. This guy, like you said on the show, Jerry Brown is bad enough, but he can't even hold a candle to this guy when it comes to anti-gun sentiment. And this will cause many, many ranges, ours included, to really reconsider whether we even want to sell ammunition up there. The whole idea of this really... Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Well, what I'm saying is the whole idea of this thing is it's a nuisance thing. It's meant to really cause a tremendous nuisance. It has no bearing at all on safety or making the streets safer. It is a nuisance measure, and he wants to see how far he can get with this. And gun owners need to see it for what it is. It is a nuisance measure. It does nothing to protect the residents of this state. Probably what it'll wind up doing is make it even worse.
Right. And so what's going to happen are a couple things. One is if you discourage enough sellers, you have now shrunk the marketplace and turned it into a seller's market, because buyers will have fewer places to buy ammunition. So the cost of ammunition is going to go up, because the cost to sell ammunition, thanks to the government, will ultimately act as a regulatory tax. So you're going to have an ammunition tax essentially on top of the cost of ammunition, but your range would have to charge more range fees and make it more difficult for a lot of low, middle income, hardworking people that spend all week busting their tail, abiding by all the laws, paying their taxes, minding their own business, and they just want to get away for the weekend. They love coming up there to shoot. Now it's going to cost them more.
That's absolutely true. Our 90% of our clientele are working class people who want to come up and have fun and do it somewhat inexpensively. But what's going to happen is that they're going to find out that going to a day of shooting is going to wind up like going for a day at Disneyland, which is not so cheap anymore.
Yeah.
So that's what's going to happen.
Well, I hate Disneyland, so that doesn't bother me. But I love shooting, so it's like, but the point that you made, Joe, I think is cannot be dismissed, which is you've got to look beyond the minutia to the larger point, which is they want to stamp out every small operator they can. They want to control this market until they can get the market to zero. Their goal ultimately is that you not own and keep and exercise your Second Amendment and own and keep firearms. They want you to be at the mercy of the professionals. They want you to outsource all of your freedom defending to cops in the military and people like that, because I've talked to them. I was on the Dr. Drew show last week or the week before, I forget which, but it was 4 against 1. And the 4 who were opposing me were all lawyers, members of the media, people of that nature who are established liberals, and they're defending and pushing this media narrative on the Second Amendment. And what was really struck me is the 2 black panelists were the ones who were pushing the hardest, saying only the cops should have guns, only trained personnel. We only trust the cops. We don't want more guns on the street. We don't want you to be able to own a gun. And I was listening to this, and I almost started laughing. I tried to interrupt and ask a question, but it was like, so the whole Black Lives Matter movement is saying the cops abuse their power, and we want to have the right to be able to defend ourselves. The Black Panthers from way back when, before they were bombing and blowing things up, were legally protesting for the right to keep and bear arms. They were open carrying in California and actually protested and went on the floor in 1968. They went on the floor of the California State Assembly to demand that Governor Ronald Reagan not sign the open carry ban, which he ultimately did sign. Yep. But here's the thing. They used their legal lawful rights to defend the Second Amendment. Now the very same people want to take that away and give it to the people who they believe are abusing them. And you can't make this stuff up.
No, it's absolutely, if you didn't know better, you would think these people didn't know any history at all. They knew no history at all, because there are people, the NRA, for example, used to defend black people who were deprived of the right of ownership of firearms in the late 1800s, early 1900s because of segregation. Whites down in the South wanted to take their guns away from them. And so the NRA represented them. The Congress of Racial Equality, CORE, very, very pro-Second Amendment, but nobody talks to them. they're a great leader in civil rights, have been for many, many years.
Well,
but nobody wants to listen to that side.
Joe, you just said the magic word, civil rights. Gun ownership is a civil right.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
It is a constitutional civil right, but it is a politically incorrect civil right that the civil rights activists refuse to defend. Hey, we're out of time, unfortunately, Joe. I want to thank you for coming on the show. Joe Kavanaugh, owner of the Burro Canyon Shooting Park, sponsor and supporter of the Tim Donnelly Show, and great American and true patriot. Joe, thanks for coming on.
You're absolutely welcome, and Tim, and just if I can say quickly, please tell the voters they need to be vigilant. They need to be vigilant.
We will stay on them, and we will be right back with your calls. 323-746-TALK. Hey, if you like shooting as much as I do, you've probably been to a lot of ranges. Unless you visited Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you've never seen anything like it. On the way there, you'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon and wind your way up into the Angeles National Forest. With over 600 acres, including 19 private ranges, there's something for everyone. There's rifle and pistol ranges for beginners, right up to advanced shooters. And there's plenty of spaces to shoot sporting clays. You can make a family day of it, or you can bring a group for team building exercises. Bring a picnic lunch. On the weekends, they provide lunch. And don't worry, they always have ammo in case you forget yours or run out. One thing I can guarantee is that once you visited my friends at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you'll be hooked and you'll keep coming back. BurroCanyon.com is their website, or call them at 626-910-1344, 626-910-1344. You know, it is hard to argue with simple truth. And simple truth is, and I referred earlier to an article that was written by a European. And you might say, wow, what do Europeans know of America? Well, one of the first looks in the mirror that we ever had here as a people was written by a European. And it's really important, I think, from time to time to take a hard look in the mirror. And for me, the prism, the viewpoint through which I view what is happening to our freedom is firearms. It's that simple for me. And you have in this article that I'm just going to read you a little bit. It's called "America is a Bomb Waiting to Explode." And one of the captions is "Nowhere to Run." In the past, people lived in rural communities. They could grow food. They had real communities. They also had self-control and a conception of morality. And see, when most people hear the word morality, they think religion. I'm not talking about religion, and I don't think he is either. Morality is just doing the right thing. Yourself. Not having government force you to do the right thing. And that's why one of the founders stated very vociferously that a constitutional republic and the freedom with which we enjoyed could only be preserved by a moral people. Now, he said a religious and a moral people. Religion is separate, in my opinion, from morality. morality exists, religion often brings it to mind for people that you have something like the Ten Commandments that lays out the basic rules for right and wrong. But deep in our souls, deep in our consciences, we know right from wrong. You don't need the Ten Commandments to tell you not to covet your neighbor's wife, not to steal your neighbor's property, not to steal their crops, not to steal their car, not to steal their electricity. And yet we have a society in which morality has gone out the window, in which we glorify the immoral. And so I'll continue reading his article. Today, if the supply lines go down, you're stuck in a house you can't heat, surrounded by millions of FDA-approved drug addicts who are going psycho because they've run out of juice, and people who would murder their own grandmothers to get a cut-price iPhone. I would argue that the right shock event or combination of shock events will detonate the explosive. Potential detonators happen all the time. Either they are contained or they're simply incompatible with the explosives and don't go off. But that doesn't mean it's never going to happen, nor that we're sitting on a mountain of explosives. Well, we will continue this discussion, and we're going to have Kelly Carlson coming up right after the break. Stay tuned. Hey, if you like shooting as much as I do, you've probably been to a lot of ranges. Unless you visited Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you've never seen anything like it. On the way there, you'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon and wind your way up into the Angeles National Forest. With over 600 acres, including 19 private ranges, there's something for everyone. There's rifle and pistol ranges for beginners, right up to advanced shooters. And there's plenty of spaces to shoot sporting clays. You can make a family day of it, or you can bring a group for team building exercises. Bring a picnic lunch. On the weekends, they provide lunch. And don't worry, they always have ammo in case you forget yours or run out. One thing I can guarantee is that once you visited my friends at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you'll be hooked and you'll keep coming back. BurroCanyon.com is their website, or call them at 626-910-1344, 626-910-1344. Looking for the Radio Free California Network, you found it. We are here every day, 3 to 6. Well, I should say every weekday, 3 to 6 p.m. And we always have great guests. We've been very blessed in that department. And this hour, for the 4 o'clock hour, we're going to have a special celebrity co-host, and that is actress Kelly Carlson, who you might know as the infamous Kimber Henry on Nip Tuck, but she is so much more than all of that. And I want to welcome her to the show. Kelly, welcome back to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Hi, Tim. Thanks for having me back.
It is wonderful having you back on. I wish you were here in studio. That would be a lot more fun because you just have an infectious personality, but I understand that you are a very busy person. I appreciate the time that you're lending us here today. And,
of course,
you know, one of the topics, last time you came out and you co-hosted, we talked about everything but guns and how they transformed your life. And tell us a little bit, because I don't know how closely people follow the lives of celebrities. I know some people, my wife is one of them, who she'll say to me, "Oh, did you know so-and-so and this happened?" And I'm thinking, are you talking about somebody down the street, or are you talking about a celebrity? And she talks about a celebrity
I don't follow it either.
Yeah, the way people talk about their neighbor up the street.
Right.
But when you become an actress and you're successful, as you were clearly incredibly successful on the Nip Tuck show, you created a character. You drew stalkers, and in particular, you had one that was really pernicious, and literally, it ruined a good portion of your peace of mind and your ability to live your life as you saw fit because you had somebody who was obsessed with you.
Yeah, it was, and it's a little more unorthodox. And I've never really been that public about it until recently, and I still don't divulge a lot. But this was, I call it a stalking case, but somebody hired somebody to do what they did.
Wow. So it's even worse.
It was like through another person. What was that?
It's even worse.
Oh, it was. Well, and first, I knew the person who hired these people. It was more than one. And so the part that, well, and before I even go into it, I'm just not of that mind. Like, so I wasn't, like when I walk around town, I have awareness. I just don't assume people know me, for one. Like, just, I'm putting that out there.
I've walked around with you and people do know you. That's the problem.
Sure. Well, and so I don't, therefore, assume people are following me either, right? Like, it just kind of lends itself to that type of awareness I didn't have. So,
right.
It started to, it became apparent to me, but then they started to come into my home. And this is when things got really bad because, I have a martial arts background. I'm not, any professional by any means, but I started when I was 19 doing Kali, and I always thought I could take, I could deal with some things, right? I felt pretty confident about it, and one of the things that was revealed to me in a very harsh way was that is totally not the case at all. Self-defense and martial arts is great, but about 90% of it isn't going to do you any good because it's taught to you like a sport, meaning mano-a-mano. You're practicing in a ring or wherever, and you're face-to-face, and you come in together equal, and you start practicing these skills and techniques. But that's not what real life is at all. And we're all intelligent enough to know that, but it doesn't dawn on you that you're not taking duress into account. You're not taking the element of surprise and just frozen fear.
Sure.
And luckily I can think clearly when I am highly stressed, but it dawned on me that here's what went through my head once. And this is going to sound very, not graphic, or maybe a little bit, but just crude maybe, but this is just the truth. There was one time I was in my kitchen, and I had come into my house, and they had shut all these doors and all of this, so I had all these blind spots, and I had put my purse down by the front door, crossed the hallway into the kitchen. So now, when I realize someone's probably down the other hall, I'm separated from any weapon, the front door, now they're in between me and the front door, so I'm stuck in the kitchen, and I'm frozen. And I thought, okay, I'm thinking to myself, what are my options if somebody rounds the corner? Like, what? Okay, I've got nothing, and I didn't want to move because it's so quiet. I didn't want to reveal my location. I mean,
right.
You're holding your breath, right? I mean, slowly breathing, trying to. And I thought, and this is just the truth, if he has a firearm and I don't, that's my worst case scenario, in the way that he could just kill me from a distance. He could just be, feet away, and that'll be it. That's not good. My best case scenario is if he wanted to physically assault me, because now I have a chance, because I can use some of my skill and technique. I can try. I don't think I'm going to be that great, depending on what this guy looks like, but that's my best case scenario, that he's going to get close to me.
Yeah, to get him in close, where your hand-to-hand combat would have some ability. But also, that's not such. Well, it's not such a. You were saying it's kind of a crude thing, but you know what? Part of your weaponry is your attractiveness, and that's going to throw a male off. It just is, and it's going to make it harder for him to harm you in that regard, or at least give you a second or two if he's closing in on you.
I don't know if they're being paid a lot of money. The person who hired him had a lot of money. So I teach on psychopathy and sociopathy, and I don't know that would come into play. But here's the deal: you can't count on it, right?
Right.
So, but I knew then that whatever techniques I have learned are gone. I had like two things in my pocket, like in my mind, that I knew would be effective if I could, depending on his size. And all of this went through my head in fractions of a second, and in different scenarios. Because you're trying to prepare yourself, and all I could think about is, if I had my firearm, I'd be good. I'd be good, because at least if he has one word equal, if he doesn't, he's in my home, he's broken in my home, and I'm going to take care of it, and whatever way the situation dictates is appropriate. But as a woman, and Dan and I teach hand-to-hand combat, and I always deal with the women, because the truth is, we are not physically created equally with strength and size and frame and even fast twitch muscles. I don't care what anybody says. You have a few options for hand-to-hand combat, and that's it. So I don't, with women, it's like you really have to gear yourself up, because in real life situation, it's going to be so ugly, and I want them to have an equalizer of some kind, because don't kid yourself. You're not going to box a guy. You're just not. Even guys my size or smaller are probably stronger than me. I may have a better chance, but, muscle mass, they just have more, and that's why, for me, and it's not the only reason why firearms are so important, because I think there's multiple reasons why they're important, but that was the day that I realized, this subject matter is not a joke. It shouldn't be politicized. This really, it comes down to people's lives, and there's a lot more innocent victims out there that get violated because they don't have the opportunity to protect themselves, man and woman, both.
Yes. And we're going to pause there just to take a quick break. We're talking with actress Kelly Carlson, and we're talking about, surprise, surprise, guns, Second Amendment, and how it transformed Kelly's life. We will be right back after these messages. Whether you're an experienced shooter or just buying your first gun, Turner's Outdoorsman has everything you need, along with a knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you find that perfect gear for your next adventure. Turner's now has 18 locations across Southern California, including a Victorville location right on Bear Valley Road. Be sure to check out the new Archery Pro shops in the Victorville, Chino Hills, and Pasadena locations. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can browse and shop their selection at turners.com. Be sure to check out their weekly specials and sign up to get them delivered directly to your inbox. Turner's is where I turn for all my firearms and ammo needs. Remember to tell them Tim Donnelly sent you, and you'll get an additional discount. We're talking the Second Amendment and how it transformed her life with actress Kelly Carlson. And Kelly, before the break, you were talking about how you came home this one day, you found yourself separated from your purse, separated from your gun, separated from your front door by a person who had been paid to stalk you and attack you and do God knows what. And of course, you have a mere tenths of a second as you're going through all the options in your head, which include, you even said you hoped maybe it was someone who had come to potentially sexually assault you, so that maybe when the person got in close enough, your hand-to-hand combat skills could be engaged. But if the guy wants to shoot you from a distance, you got nothing.
Right.
So
it sounds really terrible, but when you're under pressure like that, you have, it's time to be real with the scenario. That's why, I said it's going to sound a little crude that I'm hoping he wants to physically assault me, but that's just the way it is. Like, that's going to be my best odds.
And so what wound up happening?
Nothing. Thank God. Here's what happened. So this was one of multiple times this took place.
When you say this, you mean people breaking into your home?
Yeah.
And terrifying you.
And they were coming into my house. And it started like very small, and then they would escalate it and escalate it and escalate the fear, and also the, revealing the fact that people were in my house. Right. Right. It was intentional. I, throughout the process is learning this, and I think at that time, there were so many. I think at that time I knew for sure people were coming in. Because what they had, the details don't matter. They had shut all these doors, made it very apparent. But what I did was I sat in that position, and I waited for about an hour. I mean, just frozen. I was terrified. I knew if this one person would start calling my house, I'd be okay. And when my phone rang and it was this individual, I knew it wouldn't be in their best interest if I were assaulted while they were on the phone.
Right.
So that's when I knew I was clear and I was okay. Because they had blinded my bedroom door, the guest bedroom door, all of this that I always keep open for visual, and blocked some things and and I'm alone. I live in a condo, so you have one entrance and exit. So it's, you can easily get trapped or blockaded in. And the way my place was laid out now, where they had been, but I didn't know if we're still there behind the doors or not, is now between me and my exit. So I waited, because I didn't want to call the police. I didn't want to make that noise. I didn't even want to run to the door. I knew if my phone rang and this one particular person was calling, because that was the person that hired them, there can't be somebody in here. It would be, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It would, right. So when that phone rang, I knew it would be clear. But again, I didn't have any, and by the way, Tim, I didn't own a firearm at that time.
Okay.
That was the moment that I knew I needed to get one.
Interesting. And
because, go ahead.
No, I want to know what you were thinking in that moment.
Well, all of the whole time that I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking people are either in these other rooms because they had done things prior, and so I'll get into the other stuff. But again, that scenario is going through my head. Okay, I don't have a firearm. I don't have a weapon on me of any kind. I have my hands. Here's my best case scenario. The other one was if my phone starts ringing, I think I'll be okay. Didn't want to call the police. I mean, I did, but that would have made a lot of noise. And you're in such close proximity to where they could be. It just, you go into this hyper vigilant, or not vigilant. What's the word? You're trying to preserve every fraction of a second of your life. You go into this mode where you're just doing all these mathematics, right? Like, okay, I'm going to shorten my time if I do this. And it may not make logical sense to people. Like, of course, you just go run and pick up the phone. I would say that to someone.
Right.
But, I mean, because it doesn't make sense. But it was too far of a distance to my phone to travel, and it would have been too loud. And you're in too close of quarters. It just dawned on me that any judgments I would have had on people or situations where people have been assaulted, and I'm thinking, you totally could have done this, just was like, went out the window. I was like, okay, I get it. Oh, no more judgment from here on out. It's just not that easy.
Yeah,
and
obviously,
do get out of.
If you had a gun in your possession, it would have changed everything. And I want to talk about that when we come back from this break. But we're talking with actress Kelly Carlson. We've been talking about a situation in which she was being stalked and terrified and sitting there ticking away the seconds of her life, trying to figure out how she could survive an assault that was pending or that she felt was pending, and how the Second Amendment, which is under massive assault by the leftists, especially here in California, transformed her life. So whatever you do, don't touch that dial. Hey, if you like shooting as much as I do, you've probably been to a lot of ranges. Unless you visited Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you've never seen anything like it. On the way there, you'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon and wind your way up into the Angeles National Forest. With over 600 acres, including 19 private ranges, there's something for everyone. There's rifle and pistol ranges for beginners, right up to advanced shooters. And there's plenty of spaces to shoot sporting clay. You can make a family day of it, or you can bring a group for team building exercises. Bring a picnic lunch. On the weekends, they provide lunch. And don't worry, they always have ammo in case you forget yours or run out. One thing I can guarantee is that once you visited my friends at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you'll be hooked and you'll keep coming back. BurroCanyon.com is their website, or call them at 626-910-1344. 626-910-1344. If you're just tuning in to the Radio Free California Network, what's the matter with you? Where have you been? We've been having a great conversation here, but you can join us now. We have on the Radio Free California Newsmaker line none other than actress Kelly Carlson, who is no stranger to the Tim Donnelly Show. You know, Kelly, the last time you came out here, you and I met for a cup of coffee before the show near the Radio Free California Network studios, and you couldn't get out of a Starbucks in Hesperia, California, without being recognized. And you remember, there was a lady that asked you, are you that actress? And, of course, you are. And that program you were on, Nip Tuck, hasn't been on in quite some time, but you were also in a number of movies, and you've done a lot of acting, and you have a very distinctive look, and so people recognize you. There's no matter, even though you come to me, you're just like a Midwest girl from Minnesota, and I'm from Michigan, and we're just normal people, and we see ourselves that way. But in your case, you're highly visible, and what happens, especially if you're an attractive female, is you can attract, some people have attracted stalkers. In your case, it was something a little bit different, where it was someone who had hired people to stalk you and terrorize you. And the average person probably can't relate to all of that, but they can relate to being alone in the house, terrified that there's somebody in there, feeling absolutely certain that you had closed a door or done this or done that, taken security measures, and you're now alone inside, your exit is blocked, and you don't know what to do. And in that moment, you made a decision that transformed your life, which is you're going to get a firearm and never be that vulnerable again. Tell us about that.
Well, it, kind of how I mentioned before, I've been in this scenario, like similar ones, a couple times throughout this whole stalking process. Was about a year. And even having, Kali training or, martial arts training, you name it. My dad had me starting this when I was a kid. I was an only child. So he kind of raised me to take care of myself. It dawned on me that for women, okay, and even men too, but definitely for women, there's not a lot of options physically that you're going to have to protect yourself, and that became so apparent to me. Even if I had a blade in my hand too, and I've had a lot of training with that, I know I'm still at a disadvantage. I just know it. And the only thing that's really going to equalize the situation is a firearm. And so let me say one thing real quick. My situation had nothing to do with being an actor or celebrity. This is because the person who hired people I knew. Right? So
right.
This could be just a domestic situation that anybody can be in. So for any listener, don't discount the story because I'm an actor, because my situation was a domestic situation. So it can apply to anybody.
Sure.
Celebrity didn't come into play.
What was the first step that you took to get a gun? I mean, so you made the decision, you got through that moment, the danger passed. Mm-hmm. What did you do next? It didn't pass. Right, it didn't pass yet. But, I had to hire protection, physical protection, by
someone named Dan. That's how I met my husband. Everybody,
a very capable bodyguard.
Yes, who I'm now married to. But that was the only thing, because now I didn't know anything about firearms. Always had a goal to learn one day, but it never came in. It came into my life one time, and I'll explain that in 1995. But when you're under tremendous stress and you haven't slept for a very long time, I was under 100 pounds. My hair was falling out from the stress. It was terrible. I know I'm not thinking, I'm not, I need help with anything with a firearm. I need another capable person there. And Dan took care of that for me. Because also in a stalking situation, whether someone hires somebody to hurt you or the person's doing it themselves, you're under the clock. The clock's ticking time, right? You don't have all day because they're on you all the time. It doesn't stop.
Yeah, that's part of the abuse of it all is the relentless nature of the stress that breaks you down mentally and emotionally and spiritually.
Totally.
But so you went and hired a bodyguard. You wound up with Dan, and so did he take you out and teach you how to shoot?
Yes. Let me just say this real quick. Before I found Dan, my attorney and I interviewed a bunch of people that apparently, provides protection.
Sure.
They had no clue. I could not find anybody out here, really, that legitimately, because there was a lot of technology they had put in my house involved on a very sophisticated level, way over my head. Nobody knew what this was. So that's when through a business partner of mine, I found Dan, just a higher level of knowledge and training and sophistication that I would never have had access to. So that's how I met Dan, and he flew out here, and for a year trained me in so many things, but with the firearms, and to this day, all the time, we train constant. We train. It is right top 3 priorities of to-do of our week, of our month, of our day, is constant training, because when I first got the firearm, I was like, oh boy, it's a little scary, right?
Sure.
I'm going to acknowledge that it's a little stressful on top of it. And you realize you have this responsibility to yourself and others. And I took it very seriously. And, with Dan, with his background, they don't ever not take it seriously. It's gun culture is part of their life and safety. So he just started training me. We went to the range, but we dry fired at home. We practiced movement throughout my house, because if you're going to do self-defense, like with a firearm at home, you don't want to just plink at a range, because you're just standing still aiming at a target. You need to learn the blind spots in your house.
So a lot of what you were doing is situational, as well as mentally and physically preparing yourself for reality of a confrontation versus just something theoretical.
Totally. And close quarters combat. It may sound, very military, but it's not. That's what takes place in your house.
Well, I like that a lot better. I like it a lot better than your original plan about hoping the guy was there to physically assault you. This is a much better plan. I think people can relate to that and say, wow, because the other one is about literally not dying. It's about trying to delay what you believe may be inevitable, but delay that final moment to where you might have a chance to do something. Whereas here, you're taking command of your life. You took it very seriously, because a lot of people think gun owners are not responsible, but the vast majority are. And your approach to it was terrific, because you're doing this training, and you have someone who is clearly teaching you much more than just how to shoot. You're changing the way you think.
That's right. Oh, she changed the way I drive, my movements, outside, inside, around corners, awareness, people. I mean, it changed everything, because if you think about it, and especially for your listeners, because I know so many people are like, that wouldn't happen to me, I'm not that special. People always say that, well, why would someone do that to me, this or that? Well, everybody feels that way, including me. And I had somebody surveying me for months and months, and I didn't know about it. I assume people will look at me fine. I don't always pay attention to it. But I had somebody had surveillance up in my house. And everywhere I went, my car, and I was totally oblivious, completely. You just don't think people do go those lengths. So I'm just walking around, carefree, cruising around, and until I got the training from Dan, I mean, I couldn't even, there's no way I could go back to that just oblivion. You're so vulnerable, and you have no idea how vulnerable you are with your movements, just walking through your house or anywhere. And it was like, luckily, by the grace of God, nothing bad really happened to me during that time. But when you do get a little bit of training, you recognize how vulnerable you were. And
absolutely,
your attitude isn't trying, like always preparing for the worst, like in a negative headspace. It's not like that at all.
Hey, we are talking with Kelly Carlson, actress, about how not just the Second Amendment, but a whole different mentality transformed her life. We will be right back after these short messages with the conclusion. Whether you're an experienced shooter or just buying your first gun, Turner's Outdoorsman has everything you need, along with a knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you find that perfect gear for your next adventure. Turner's now has 18 locations across Southern California, including a Victorville location right on Bear Valley Road. Be sure to check out the new Archery Pro shops in the Victorville, Chino Hills, and Pasadena locations. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can browse and shop their selection at turners.com. Be sure to check out their weekly specials and sign up to get them delivered directly to your inbox. Turner's is where I turn for all my firearms and ammo needs. Remember to tell them Tim Donnelly sent you, and you'll get an additional discount. Hey, welcome back to the show. We're talking with actress Kelly Carlson about how guns, the Second Amendment, which are under a nonstop, vicious, violent assault by leftists who want the government to control every aspect of your life, but in particular here in California with this new measure by Gavin Newsom. Now, Kelly, first of all, I want to thank you for coming on, and thank you for sharing, this story. And it can be a painful story to share, in that you're talking about a time when you had no control over your life, essentially. And now you're in a very different space. You're one of the most relaxed, confident people. And I can see Dan has made a huge part of that difference. And by the way, Dan is a wonderful wonderful patriot. He's a great American. He's served this country, and he is he's kind of your silent hero because he doesn't say much, but you would never want to mess with the guy. Let me tell you.
No. He's good.
But my point is, so a lot of us don't like to talk about when we didn't have any power, when we felt powerless. But
right.
you shared that, and now you have a plan, and you actively survey your surroundings. You have armed yourself with a firearm and trained yourself in how to use it. And so, what do you have to say to the people who consider the fact that you're armed, the fact that other people are legally armed, and they claim that that is the greatest threat to public safety now, and they want to take away our guns, and they want to do things like force you to register just to be able to buy a couple of bullets for your gun?
Right. Well, what I found recently, because I text you, I debated this at Politicon, and so there was a lot of anti-gun audience members, and you know, you have the politics of this, right? The politicians, that's one agenda. They want to take your guns away. But they make it logical to the masses, right?
Right.
The masses don't know what they're talking about. They don't know anything about, and when I say the masses, I mean the anti-gun. I really spent a lot of individual time with people last weekend that were anti-gun to figure out where they were coming from in their mind, because to me it doesn't make logical sense, right? Where they come from. It really came down to the wrong use of words, lost in translation. I found, one, there was a lot of liberals that weren't against guns. So I'm going to be pointing at the politicians in a second. And then number two, the people that are anti-gun, they kept saying, we need to make it harder. We need to make it harder. And I said, what do you mean by that? Because I'm going to fight you on that, but I need to know what you mean. And
what did they say?
So I proposed. Go ahead. What?
What did they say?
Well, they didn't know because they don't know how to operate firearms. They don't know anything. So I said, I'm going to propose a couple things, and I'm being so sincere here. I said, one, I think there needs to be, I'm going to extend an olive branch here. I do think there needs to be a standard of proficiency for concealed carry. It's in the Second Amendment. I think it's reasonable for concealed carry. You should have some training only because there are friendlies involved with concealed carry, right? And it would be the responsible thing to do. Secondly, you guys, I asked them, would you consider going to take a gun lesson, a gun class, and let's have this conversation again. I go, first, before you start making suggestions, I need you to understand or have some experience in how firearms are, how they work, the mechanics, what comes in, and all the variety of different kinds. Because if you did, you wouldn't be asking some of these questions to me, like, why do I need so many? Why do the high capacities, this,
sure.
that.
So what was the reaction?
Totally cool about it. It made logical sense.
So you began a very important dialogue.
That's right. And because they said, well, when you said the standard of proficiency, that's what we mean by make it harder. I said, really? Because if we hadn't gone further in the conversation, I just thought that you wanted to put up roadblocks for me. And they're like, no, we agree with the standard of proficiency. And so I saw one of the people like an hour later down the hallway, and he goes, Kelly, I'm going to change my words.
Wow.
I'm going to say this properly now.
Kelly, thank you. Thank you for coming on today. Actress Kelly Carlson, unfortunately, we're out of time.
No problem.
Thank you. We will be right back with your calls.
Don't you think it's about time you treat yourself or someone you love to something very special? Well, Ozell Jewelers, the finest jewelry store in the high desert, is known throughout the high desert for having the largest variety of fine-looking jewelry and gifts for every special occasion. Ozell custom designs and manufactures their own jewelry, so you'll be able to find exclusive, one-of-a-kind, stunning styles you won't find anywhere else in Southern California. If you're looking for fine jewelry at unbeatable prices, Ozell Jewelers is the place to go. Show appreciation to that special person in your life with something special to cherish forever. Ozell Jewelers, voted best jewelers in the high desert by the Daily Press regularly for years. Ozell Jewelers has been putting smiles on high desert faces for over 30 years. Ozell Jewelers in Rancho Cucamonga, Palm Desert, and Amargosa Road by Red Lobster in Victorville. Ozell Jewelers.
Dancing down the street with your sway blue eyes. Every new boy that you meet, he doesn't know the real surprise. Here she comes again when she's dancing beneath the starry sky. She'll make you feel. Here she comes again when she's dancing beneath the starry sky.
Hey, we've been talking about guns almost the entire show today, and we will continue to talk about guns because that's what I like to talk about. And it's relevant, and it's timely, and, you know, there's a million other shows that can give you the dissection of the Republican Party. I can just tell you, when you dissect it, you will find there is no spine, and that is the problem. The party needs to grow a spine, and it's not likely to happen anytime soon, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it. And the Democrat Party is no better. They lost their moral compass a long time ago, and I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about right versus wrong. But one thing that is sort of the canary in the coal mine is the Second Amendment. And we've approached it from a couple different angles. We talked earlier today with Joe Kavanaugh, owner of the Burro Canyon Shooting Park. And by the way, Joe and his wife, Deb, asked me to give away a free day of shooting every once in a while. And I thought of something. So get ready. If you don't have the phone number plugged into your phone, you're going to have to take it down right now, because it's going to be a first come, first serve if you want to win a full day of shooting. And that's a pretty valuable prize. And if you've never been there, you're in for a treat. It's kind of like a vacation, a little mini vacation if you love shooting and the outdoors. 323-746-TALK, or if you're driving, 323-746-8255. Look, I got a very simple request. If you are the first person who can call in and accurately quote the Second Amendment from memory, so you're going to be on your honor. Don't be looking on your phone. You have to know it. And if you know it, now is your moment to shine. So 323-746-TALK for a free day of shooting, courtesy of Burro Canyon Shooting Park, which is not that far away. It's up in a gorgeous canyon. And we will take first come, first serve if you want to win. Look, they've got over 600 acres, 19 private ranges, rifle, pistol ranges, beginners. You can shoot sporting clays, bring a picnic lunch, enjoy the natural beauty of the Angeles National Forest while you shoot. And right now, since the dreaded Measure X, thanks to Gavin Newsom, is not yet on the ballot and is not yet law, you can still buy ammo. So if you run out or if you forget, you can pick up some when you're up there. But I just want to know, is there anyone out there, and this is on your honor. You know, if you want to cheat, I guess I wouldn't have any way of knowing it, but on your honor, I want you to pick up the phone if you want to win a full day shooting at Burro Canyon Shooting Park. You just got to quote the Second Amendment. I want it from memory. I want all 26 words from memory. 323-746-TALK. Because if there was ever any amendment, if there was ever any one of the Bill of Rights that you needed to write on your heart and imprint it on your brain and make sure that deep down in your soul you knew and understood that fundamental freedom, it's the Second Amendment. I'm going to give you the number one more time. See if there's anyone brave enough. And you know what? I'll give you a choice. You can either have a day of shooting at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, or you can have a $10 gift certificate, a $10 gift certificate to In-N-Out Burger. 323-746-TALK. Who can quote the Second Amendment from memory? Well, we got one trier here, so we're going to give it a whirl. Hey, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Yes. Who is this?
Yes, okay. A well-regulated militia being necessary for the freedom of a country. That's fine, all right. To ride the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Well, it was close.
It was close,
but no cigar. But thanks for trying. All right. Who else we got? Do we have anybody else with the guts to pick up the phone and dial in 323-746-TALK, 323-746-8255? If you can quote the Second Amendment from memory, you could win either a free day of shooting at the Burro Canyon Shooting Park or a $10 gift certificate to In-N-Out Burgers so that you could enjoy a double animal style fries and a Coke. At least you can get that for $10. I think it comes out to like 9 something or 7. It depends on whether you get a shake or just go with a regular drink. Anyway, while people are thinking of that, look, you can't look it up. You got to hit the phones right now. First come, first serve. You got to do it from memory. We had one attempt. It was close, but no cigar. 323-746-TALK. And meanwhile, we will talk about that basic freedom. And you know, we had actress Kelly Carlson on earlier, and she laid out a harrowing case for, even though she's a celebrity, she wasn't stalked as a celebrity. She was stalked by somebody that she knew. And she isn't naming names, and I'm not going to break that confidence. But what I will tell you is she was correct. It's very much like any domestic stalking case, except for the perniciousness of hiring people to terrify and harass someone. It's beyond anything I could describe to you. But somewhere in the middle of that, of feeling powerless, of feeling alone, of feeling like she could do nothing to protect and preserve that inalienable right, that gift from God of which we only have one, that's your life, she figured out she needed a gun. The only way she could equalize her situation was to be able to procure a firearm. She didn't know how to use one, so of course she sought out, through her attorney, someone that could train her, and ultimately wound up meeting her future husband, who is now her husband, Dan, who is also a Navy SEAL and an incredible American. But look, here's the point. Here's what applies to all of us. Gavin Newsom wants to make it harder for you to exercise the Second Amendment. And let me give you a couple of examples. On the one hand, you've got his requirement within this Measure X ballot initiative to get a background check similar to or exactly the same that you were required to buy the firearm. You now have to go through to buy ammo. Okay, number one. Now, that's going to create a bureaucratic nightmare. It's going to create tremendous new costs for firearm retailers. It is, and Joe stated it. He said, look, I'm going to have to hire more people. So at some point, I'm losing so much money, I'm not making money, so I'm not going to sell ammo anymore. And that's the real intent, is to make it a bureaucratic nightmare, to make it so intimidating, so costly, that a lot of retailers just give up selling ammo. Now you have fewer people selling ammo. Well, when you have fewer people selling a product that is in high demand, what happens? Supply and demand. Price goes up. It's just a rule of economics. It's a fundamental rule of economics. So right there, you have the government once again coming in and making your life harder, coming in and infringing a fundamental natural right. This is not just an everyday thing. This is not like the privilege that you have to operate an automobile. That's a privilege. This is a right. This is a fundamental natural right. And the other part of it, another one of the big parts, for the government to come in and confiscate something you legally bought because they've decided to outlaw it. You know what? We need to fight back against these stupid high-capacity magazine bans, because they use these mass killings as an example of why nobody should be able to own more than a magazine that contains more than 10 rounds in California. So basically, 10 dead people, that's okay with the government. You know what? That's just stupid logic. Because if you think about it, what they just did, Jerry Brown, with signing the CCW ban, so now you could have a CCW, a concealed carry weapons permit. You're not permitted on school grounds with it. So an active shooter could show up, start mowing down people, and if you're concealed carrying, you're in violation of the law. So if you do pull your gun, you're liable to be sued or thrown in jail, even if you kill the bad guy. Yeah, thanks a lot, Jerry Brown. Thanks a lot, Democrats, Marxist, progressive, leftist control freaks. Give me a break. And then on top of that, you want to take away my right to own and operate a magazine that might hold 15 or 16 rounds or 30 rounds? Why is that any of your damn business? And besides, what if the individual that needs to defend their life is trapped at home? Picture this. When I was in Sacramento, the cop killer, Christopher Dornan, was roaming the streets of my community. And I told my sons and I told my wife, I said, if you hear anything, barricade yourself in the bathroom, get the gun that has the most bullets. I didn't elaborate because I didn't want to give the government some reason to break down my door. But I said, load it to the gills and get it locked and loaded, lock the bathroom door. And if anybody tries to break it down, just shoot through the door until they're dead. And don't stop shooting. I don't want them to have to reload. Come on. If I got something that can hold 30 rounds, I want them shooting whatever has 30 rounds. If it has 15 or 16, I want them to put that in, not the 10-round clip. Doesn't make any sense. But see, the government knows best. What do you think? 323-746-TALK. We'll take your calls when we come back. Whether you're an experienced shooter or just buying your first gun, Turner's Outdoorsman has everything you need, along with a knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you find that perfect gear for your next adventure. Turner's now has 18 locations across Southern California, including a Victorville location right on Bear Valley Road. Be sure to check out the new Archery Pro shops in the Victorville, Chino Hills, and Pasadena locations. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can browse and shop their selection at turners.com. Be sure to check out their weekly specials and sign up to get them delivered directly to your inbox. Turner's is where I turn for all my firearms and ammo needs. Remember to tell them Tim Donnelly sent you, and you'll get an additional discount.
Trying to make a
We are talking the Second Amendment. Going to go straight to the phones and take your calls. Hey, welcome to the show.
Hello?
Yes, you are live on air.
Hey, my name's Dave. I'm from in Hysteria. And I think you got this whole thing all wrong about this ammo registration stuff.
Oh, tell me.
And
Tell me
here's
how
why.
I'm wrong.
Here's why. At least half the weapons in this country are inherited. And the only way the government can find out what you really got is if they monitor your ammo buy purchases. For instance, I have an uncle who was one of the heroes that saved the bridge at Remagen. And he brought back a beautiful German Schmeisser. Guess who's got it?
You.
Yeah, and I buy a lot of 45 ammo. Wonder why. I'll bet the government wonders why.
Hey,
but I would guess that probably at least probably more than half the weapons in this country are inherited, and the government has no idea what it is or where it came from.
well, you make a good point. I don't see how you said that you were going to prove me wrong. I don't think you have, because I've been making that point, not particularly the way you are, but the point is that a lot of Americans own guns that are not currently on the confiscation list. I don't call them registration lists. I call them the confiscation lists that the government holds. So what you're talking about, though, is something a little bit different. And maybe you're right, but the bottom line is they don't want you to be able to freely exercise your natural right to defend your life and your freedom from tyranny. That's the bottom line.
Well,
and Gavin Newsom is taking the Democrat Party in a radically different direction. Even though the Democrat Party has become associated with gun control in recent years, they were not always an anti-gun party. There were tons and tons of Democrats who revered the Second Amendment. This is a relatively new thing.
Well, I was raised in the Midwest, and my dad was a Democrat back when Democrats were respectable. So I understand all that. And I spent a lot of time in the Bay Area, so I'm pretty familiar with Gavin and his history. And I understand that a lot of this is just grandstanding on his part to be electable in California.
Right.
I understand all that.
But grandstanding at a time when here's what I'm deeply concerned about. He's grandstanding at a time when people can easily be emotionally swayed, when there will clearly be enough money to fund his initiative. Whenever we Americans fight back against the government, we can never get enough money to effectively combat these massive monolithic special interests. But in his case, he will. The question is whether or not there will be enough people who are educated, who truly understand what this is about and what this really means to the average Californian and to our freedom. That's the concern. Anyway, hey, but thanks for your call. You do make a good point, but I thought you were going to prove me wrong. I was waiting for a big argument.
Well, no, I'm not going to argue. It's just that, the progressives are who they are. It's like they tied, well, here's another example. They tied your need to go to court and sit on juries to your registration to vote. So a lot of people who are busy and working hard and don't have time to go play jury duty, and they don't register to vote for that reason, period.
Right, yeah. Well, they got all kinds of schemes going. They always seem to be one step ahead of law-abiding Americans. But anyway, thanks for your call, and thanks for listening. Hey, we're talking the Second Amendment. We're talking about this Measure X, which is the latest assault on your basic natural rights. And what do you think? I'm curious, because this is one of those things that literally affects you, whether you know it or not, that you might decide, well, one day I'm going to get a gun. You have no idea the obstacles the government has put in your pathway, how hard they make it, how long it takes, all the hoops you have to jump through to prove that you are who you are. No wonder the criminals are buying their guns out of parking lots and in the trunks of cars and out of the living rooms of crack houses and criminal gun stores that are set up illegally in people's individual homes. Because why would they want to comply with all this when their whole goal is to go out and commit a crime? But the government wants to criminalize you, turn you into a criminal for owning any magazine that contains too many rounds, for wanting to buy ammunition. You know what they're going to do? They're going to create underground ammunition purchasers, just like they did when they went too hard after when they went and did prohibition, and so people were drinking in speakeasies. When they levy such a high tax on cigarettes, people buy them on what they call the black market. It's a two-way street. Free markets. There needs to be a balance. There needs to be respect. But don't hold your breath. Government ain't going to respect your rights anytime soon. So we will keep you informed. Whatever you do, don't touch that dial.
Don't you think it's about time you treat yourself or someone you love to something very special? Well, Ozell Jewelers, the finest jewelry store in the high desert, is known throughout the high desert for having the largest variety of fine-looking jewelry and gifts for every special occasion. Ozell custom designs and manufactures their own jewelry, so you'll be able to find exclusive, one-of-a-kind, stunning styles you won't find anywhere else in Southern California. If you're looking for fine jewelry at unbeatable prices, Ozell Jewelers is the place to go. Show appreciation to that special person in your life with something special to cherish forever. Ozell Jewelers, voted best jewelers in the high desert by the Daily Press regularly for years. Ozell Jewelers has been putting smiles on high desert faces for over 30 years. Ozell Jewelers in Rancho Cucamonga, Palm Desert, and Amargosa Road by Red Lobster in Victorville. Ozell Jewelers.
Hey, we've thrown out one challenge to you. If you're just tuning in, if you can call in, be the first person who can accurately, word for word, there's 26 words in the Second Amendment. You must be able to say them from memory. You cannot read. You cannot go online. You cannot look it up because it's on your honor and you wouldn't feel right. But if you can do that, 323-746-TALK, we will give you either a full day of shooting at the Burro Canyon Shooting Park. And if you have never been there, you've never seen anything like it. You'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon. They've got over 600 acres, 19 private ranges, and there's something for everyone. Doesn't matter what age you are. Doesn't matter what proficiency level you're at, you can comfortably, safely enjoy a day of shooting, bring a picnic lunch, enjoy the natural beauty of the Angeles National Forest. And look, by the way, when you're there, if you mention the Tim Donnelly Show, they will give you a free hat or coffee cup while supplies last. And that is while you are either on, as long as your day is paid, whether it's because you won or because you came up there and paid for a day of shooting. I'm going to go straight to the phones and see if we have a winner. Hey, welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Thank you. Let's see. A well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of our free state. And then I space. Yeah, I just spaced on the second half of it.
Nuts. I know it's hard. It's hard. But you know what? You were doing really well. You missed one word in the part that you said so far. You said being necessary for the security, and it's being necessary to the security of a free state. But hopefully someone will come in and save that, because it is so critically important. And now that you know that you don't quite 100% know it, even though you know in your heart that you know what it says, you just, it's one of those things that I think we all need to memorize. Anyway, where are you calling from?
Definitely. Riverside.
Riverside. And what's your first name?
Rich.
Rich, thanks for the call.
Not a problem.
All right. Anybody else want to give it a shot? Rich had some guts there. And you know what I appreciate, Rich? You were honest. You were obviously not reading it, and but you obviously know what it says, and I think that's very, very important, because if we're going to remain free, we've got to know the foundations of our freedom. And there is nothing more important and nothing more sacred within the defense of our republic than defending our lives and our freedom. And that's what the Second Amendment is all about. It is about the fact that was carved out by the founders, and they linked it intrinsically that this was necessary for the security of a free state. He got that part right. So somebody could easily come in and finish that if they were savvy and ride off of Rich's hard work. It's 323-746-TALK. We're trying to see if someone can give us the Second Amendment from memory. And the prize is either an $10 gift certificate to In-N-Out Burger or a full day of shooting at Burro Canyon Shooting Park. And, I want to go back to something that Kelly Carlson was talking about earlier. And she engaged, she went to a political convention. It's kind of an unusual political convention they hold in Los Angeles, where people from both parties get together and they debate and they mix, and it's kind of a strange. I'm not sure exactly what to call it. They call it Politicon. I think it's named a little bit after Comic-Con. But she engaged people, which, first of all, is something that most people are afraid to do. She literally went out and talked to people who were virulently anti-gun, people who made it clear that they want more gun control, according to them, and they want more restrictions. They want to make it harder and harder and harder, but they would not. Initially, they didn't know what to say, and they didn't know how to articulate it. So she created an environment in which people could talk to each other, and that's something we're going to have to do. This fight is not something that's going to take place with just conservatives. As I stated earlier, a lot of Democrats are not anti-gun. They are not anti-Second Amendment because they are not idiots. If you're anti-Second Amendment, if you hate the guns and you hate freedom, if you hate guns, you hate freedom. And that makes you an idiot. I'm sorry. It just does. Because who could hate freedom? And most people, when they become educated and familiar with firearms, they love shooting. They come to love the Second Amendment, and because they come to understand it. This is deeply ingrained in our culture. It is why no one has invaded this country successfully, and most would never try. The only successful invasion of the United States, there have been two. One has been the invasion of our culture and all of our institutions by the communists, who now control almost everything. And secondly, you've had the invasion of people who have come into this country illegally, who are now rewriting our laws to their benefit, who now have more political clout than most Americans, and who still are illegally present in the country and have no stake in what happens here. And yet our politicians pander to them so completely, it is beyond description. I don't even know how to put that into words. The complete, abject, total sellout of our rights by politicians who just want to get reelected. They don't even think of the long-term consequences of what they've done. And it's beyond me. And I'm sure it's beyond the ken of the vast majority of Americans to understand, why is it that you have abandoned us? You're there to represent us. You're there to be our voice. That is what Article 4, Section 4 in the Constitution was all about, that the federal government shall keep the states free from invasion, but also guarantee a Republican form of government. Well, they've flatly failed when it came to both, and they're intrinsically linked. When you allow millions and millions and millions of people who all have similar interests to come into a country and essentially invade it, and then you give them political power at the expense of those people who are the legal lawful residents of that place, you have now violated Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. There's no other way to look at it. Simple as that. So yes, I will never apologize for how much time I spend talking about what is the key to all the rest of your rights, what is the key to freedom. Firearms equal freedom. And when the government comes to take control of your guns, they aren't trying to do gun control. They're trying to take control. And you need to understand that. 323-746-TALK will take your calls in the final segment, assuming we have time. 323-746-TALK. Whether you're an experienced shooter or just buying your first gun, Turner's Outdoorsman has everything you need, along with a knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you find that perfect gear for your next adventure. Turner's now has 18 locations across Southern California, including a Victorville location right on Bear Valley Road. Be sure to check out the new Archery Pro shops in the Victorville, Chino Hills, and Pasadena locations. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can browse and shop their selection at Turners.com. Be sure to check out their weekly specials and sign up to get them delivered directly to your inbox. Turners is where I turn for all my firearms and ammo needs. Remember to tell them Tim Donnelly sent you, and you'll get an additional discount. Hey, tomorrow, you don't want to miss tomorrow's show. It's going to be all about Hillary. Well, not all. I don't want to scare you, but we're going to have Ed Klein, author of a New York Times. Well, he's author of several New York Times bestsellers, but this one is just come out. It is called The Problem with Hillary, Unlikable. Unlikable. The problem with Hillary. I've been saying that over and over and over again. He is one of the foremost experts on the fight and the schism and the whatever the issue is between Barack Obama and the Clintons. So it'll be great talking to him. And we also will have our good friend Carla Marinucci talking about Hillary, talking about the U.S. Senate race, and, of course, the 2016 election. And you won't want to miss all of that knowledge all in one place here at the Tim Donnelly Show. So make sure you tune in tomorrow. Today, we've been talking about something very simple. What does this Measure X really mean to you? We started out with Joe Kavanaugh, one of the owners of the Burro Canyon Shooting Park. And by the way, you can still get in if you can quote the Second Amendment from memory, verbatim, word for word. We will give you either a full day of shooting or a gift certificate to In-N-Out Burger, 323-746-TALK. You've only got a couple of minutes to call in. And we've had a couple of callers who tried, including Rich from Riverside, who came up. You know what he did is he stopped and listened to himself. And the thing is, once you get into a rhythm, when you know something, you have to go. You just have to go with it. And you can't pause and second guess it. And I think he would have got it right. And we probably would have forgiven him the one word because I think we can be we can show a little bit of grace in when somebody puts themselves out there. The bottom line is everybody should know it. You should have it memorized. It is only 26 words. It is 26 words that are the absolute key to freedom in a free state. It is the key to freedom in living as a free people. And it is under assault as never before. And here's the thing. Part of the reason why I'm highlighting the Burro Canyon Shooting Park, because first of all, they are a sponsor of the show, as is Turner's. And I always recommend whenever I'm talking about guns, if you're going to buy your guns anywhere, you should buy them at Turner's because they get involved. They get involved in the fight for the Second Amendment. So make sure when you do go in there that you mention the Tim Donnelly Show and let them know that you are hearing their name on our show. But let's say you go to Turner's, you get your gun, and you're brand new. You don't quite know what to do. There's tons and tons of places. You like Kelly Carlson, the actress who was on earlier, you can find someone who will train you and train you not just to become proficient at shooting, but at thinking about your own safety, about being self-aware of obviously of your surroundings and taking into account your own mental process of exactly how you can develop the mentality to be effective in a situation that would debilitate and terrify most people. And I would say that the thinking is as important as the firearm, but you can't have the one without the other. You can be all mentally prepared for a battle, but if somebody has superior firepower and they can kill you from 10 paces off, you're screwed if you don't have something to equalize that. And that's why it is immoral for the government to make it more difficult for you to legally and lawfully exercise your Second Amendment. There are way too many laws in effect. There are way too many infringements and obstacles that don't do any good. They don't stop criminals. That's the whole point. They will not stop the determined mass murderer, the would-be mass murderer who wants to get his name in lights before he blows his own brains out. That individual is a very specific type of crazy. They are a very specific type of mentally disturbed. I'm not even going to just call them mentally ill because they may not be mentally ill by anything that you can easily identify. Their mental disturb disturbation, I guess, if it's such a word, but this level of inviting evil into your soul. That's the only way I can put it. It's as if a demonic force takes over your body and you block out all human pretense. You block out all human interaction, and you're impervious to the feelings of those around you. And it's strange because some more has come out on the hero at the Umpqua Community College shooting, the Army veteran who stood up and barricaded the door and slowed down the killer, and he was shot multiple times, broken legs, laying there, and the killer was about to finish him off, and he mentioned it was his son's birthday, and the killer pointed the gun in his face and then didn't shoot. He didn't shoot. And there's just, you think there's no rhyme or reason, and yet I think in some little tiny way, that man's bravery and that man's invoking his child touched a soul that of an individual you might consider soulless. And it leads me back to the thing I talked about then, which was we as a society need to do a better job of connecting with those around us, especially those who seem disconnected and lost and have no one else. God put them in our path, and they're our responsibility. We have to touch their soul somehow, and I think that's far more powerful than a government program. It's more powerful than taking away my guns to try to protect, in some bizarre, arcane way, the rest of society, which makes no sense at all. Banning guns, banning bullets, requiring background checks, doing this, doing that. All these laws have been here, and they've done no good whatsoever. Just when I get going, we got to stop. Anyway, we'll be here tomorrow, same time, same place. You be here too. God bless you, and Godspeed. Tim Donnelly Show out.